Hey, hey. Little theme music. All right. Hey, I'm Mike Henry. And since we're all locked down, or since I'm locked down, I figured I'd try to do something cool, something creative during this time, and discovered Instagram Live. And I think the message that I want to talk about and what I'm appreciative of is people who live their best lives, who live a passionate life. And so I got some folks lined up all week, every night, to talk at this time about living a passionate life. And actually, this week it is all about living the comedy life this week. So I'm going to add. First, tomorrow night I've got Seth Green at this time. Then the next night I've got Jenny Johnson. Then Thursday night I've got Chris Frangiola. And Friday night I've got Adam Ray. And I'm really looking forward to talking to all these folks. But I'm going to add my good buddy right now, Rob Huebel. So while he loads up and gets him loaded, we can talk about his new Netflix series called Medical Police, which is hilarious. And he's also he had a show called "Can I Show You a?" Or I'm sorry, "Do You Want to See a Dead Body?" And there he is. What's up, Rob? What you drinking there?
Um, this is a one of those like lemon flavored beers. It's like called a Radler.
Oh, neat. Is that like
We're in end times, Mike.
what's that?
I said we're in end
We
times.
are in end times. I'm gonna turn my volume up here a little bit. There we go.
I got you on.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for doing this. I was just telling everybody about Medical Police, and then you had Do You Want to See a Dead Body? And then you also did Human Giant. You played opposite George Clooney in The Descendants, which blew my mind because I didn't know you were about to show up on the big screen. And But most importantly to me, or most dear to me, is that you and I shared an apartment at 12 East 22nd Street in Manhattan,
That's right.
1997 and 98. And so I'm glad to connect with you. And what I want to talk about is kind of like your journey from like when you were a kid, when you first discovered you were funny, and the thrill of making people laugh, which I'm assuming is why you do this. And we'll talk about your journey, and then our time in New York, and then what you're doing now, and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
first off, you're in LA right now. You're locked down with your
yeah,
beautiful
I've
wife
been
and your daughter.
yeah, I've been locked down for about a little more than 3 weeks.
Hmm.
So we're at the point where, it was maybe kind of fun for the first couple weeks, and then the third week kind of felt a little panicky, and
Hmm.
then there's a weird thing happening in I think with a lot of people where I'll have like a day where I'm like I feel kind of good, and then the next day I'm like fucking freaking out, like I don't know what the world is going to be like when we're done with this. What are we going to go back to? And I should preface this by saying that I feel lucky also because like I know that like we'll make it through. Like I'm not going to be homeless or anything. And I know there are a lot of people that are probably really worried about, how the fuck am I going to stay in my apartment or whatever. So
Yeah.
I should have prefaced it by saying I understand that a lot of people have legit concerns.
Yeah.
But yeah, the day to day
But your
is
little freak outs. Oh, I'm freaking out in
yeah.
my house, my wife and kid, and yeah.
Yeah, I will say that I have a 3-year-old, and I've never really felt sorry for single people, but I kind of feel sorry for single people right now because it would be if I was on my own right now,
Uh,
I would be having a harder
you'd have
time.
one arm in really good shape.
Yeah, I'd have some really well developed forearm muscles, but I would also be so sick of porn. But like right now, like if my wife goes to the store or something, like I'll be like, okay, I got 10 minutes,
Right.
and you just crank it out and I paint a face on my pillows, and then just go to town. That's the way I masturbate. I make love to my pillows.
That's cool.
But
Um,
I mean, we can get more into that later.
we can,
But
we can.
but no, for real though, it is like so nice to have, my wife and my child here, and my daughter is like such a good distraction because like she doesn't know what's going on. She's just like, is Disney World closed? And I'm like, yeah, Disney World's closed. We can't go there. So it's kind of a fun thing just to hang out with her and walk around and just we go on walks and stuff like that.
Right, just do
But
shrooms and stuff.
yeah, just take a lot of mushrooms with my daughter.
Yeah,
But
discover the world together.
yeah, but it would be pretty rough, I think, if I was just like by myself.
Yeah,
I think I probably wouldn't have fared so well.
yeah. No, I'm actually, I agree with you 100%. I'm completely aware that this really, really frickin' sucks. Not just obviously for the people who are getting sick and their families and people who are dying and but a lot of people still have to go to the gig. Still got to go to the job and. 10 million people lost their jobs in the last couple of weeks. You know, it's unbelievable. So, we're kind of helping out where we can and, where we recognize there's a need. And then other than that,
Yeah,
I'm enjoying the family and sort of stripping down all the resources to doing this kind of thing where it's just a couple of middle-aged comedy guys farting around for a little while on an Instagram chat. So, um,
yeah, it is really weird. You do feel pretty helpless, and then there is every now and then there is something that you'll see online, on Instagram where you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. People are really
yeah,
coming together and helping out in meaningful ways. And I don't really pretend that any of the bullshit that I'm doing is important or anything, but it's more just for me, like to keep my brain occupied. I try to
sure.
fucking think of something funny to do, and if other people like it, great. But
Right.
it's for me, it's more just to keep being creative if possible.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, of course, the people in the front lines and the friggin' ERs and you know, the people who are going to, who are really dealing with this shit. So,
Dude,
um,
it's so intense, and yeah, I just hope that one day we will be able to honor those people properly. That we can really like, um, give them obviously the thanks that they need, and hopefully the one great thing that might come out of this is young like kids may be inspired to go to medical school or become a nurse or become a
yeah,
respiratory therapist or something like that because they see like what a badass job it is. I mean, these are fucking heroic people that are, putting their lives on the line.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey man, let's talk about creativity and
Yeah.
living life. I think you and I are, in the minority of people who actually get to do what they really like to do for a living, and
Yeah.
that did not come easy. I know for either one of us, and
Yeah.
let's talk about that. So when you were a kid, now did you grow up in Alexandria or South Carolina? I can't remember which. I know you
I
went to
grew up in, I,
Clemson.
yeah, I grew up in Northern Virginia, in Annandale, which is just outside of DC. It's like right near
Right.
Fairfax and all that stuff. So I was like a Northern Virginia guy, and you were in
So
Richmond, right? You grew up in
yeah,
Richmond.
I'm in Richmond right now,
Yeah.
actually. But
Yeah. So my only connection to Richmond was we would always come down to Richmond and go to King's Dominion
oh
in the
yeah,
summertime and do it up down there. And
yeah,
so yeah, and then my freshman year of college, I went to Clemson, and my mom was from South Carolina, and my parents were divorced at that point. So my mom moved back down to South Carolina with my little brother, and so I kind of say I'm from South Carolina, but I'm really from Virginia.
right.
Um, and then, after Clemson, I kind of dicked around and moved out to Colorado for a year. I lived in Aspen for a
Yeah, I
year.
remember that. So wait a minute. So back to the beginning. Like, so were you
Yeah.
always like a cut up and a funny guy and sort of offbeat?
Um, I mean,
Or
I
did people
think
just think you were strange, or like what? Did
yeah,
they all think you were funny?
I think I was more like the weirdo, like I've kind of always embraced that, like it is sort of funny. Now I have a daughter who I'm trying to teach her that being weird is good, because she'll say stuff like she'll watch a TV show and she'll say, that guy's weird. And I'm like, yeah, that guy is
He's a
weird,
champion.
and like, yeah, try to frame it in a positive way. But so yeah, I think I've always kind of been drawn to, just being weird and hopefully being funny. But if you're not confident about being funny, you can kind of couch it in being weird. And I think I became sort of pro at that, you know, like I don't know that I felt super comfortable labeling myself as like the funniest person in the world,
Right.
but but I felt pretty confident that I could, you know, make my friends laugh and just kind of dick around.
Right.
So yeah, I think kind of growing up, like a lot of people, you figure out that that you can make other people laugh doing a couple of specific little tricks or little things, you know.
Yeah.
So you kind of figure out like what's funny about you,
Right.
and so I think I maybe figured that out at some point, and so I always wanted to kind of get into comedy, but I was really just too scared to do it, you know. Like you know, I was terrified of doing stand up, and that kind of stuff really scared me a lot. Even though I wanted to do it, it just seemed impossible. You know, I couldn't figure out
Yeah.
how people would do that.
That's tough. So yeah, so for anyone who's just tuning in, this is Mike Henry. I'm talking to Rob Huebel, my old New York roommate, who is a big TV star now. Google him and check out his web, not his web series, his Netflix series
But
called
isn't that the
Memphis,
best?
which
Isn't that
I
the
was going to promo the other night, and I was so spaced out and thrown off, I couldn't remember. I was going to say, is it Murder Police? Is it because this guy on Family,
it's meta? Yeah,
David Goodman,
medical
wrote a pilot
police.
called Murder Police, but. Anyway, so you always now you said you were weird. I think you probably, as did I, or I always have. I sort of like making fun of convention or not subscribing to systems per se.
Hmm.
So I think one way of doing that, you know, walk into a coffee shop and you see people who you might call weird, but they're not going to freaking go to law school and be part of a system. They're doing their own thing. They're doing art, or just they don't they don't believe in subscribing to, again, systems. And I used to be very angry. I was angry just because of general dysfunction growing up, and but I worked in advertising for a short time, and it just always made me mad that, and since then it's like, of course whatever's in a commercial is trying to sell you something, and that just, it always made me mad that they assumed everyone's so dumb that they don't realize that. So
Yeah,
that fueled me. My anger fueled me, and I just didn't want to be regular. I didn't want to be a regular person. So
yeah. I think that somehow the term creative got stuck in my brain as like such a thing to strive for. Like I don't know, it must have been a teacher or somebody that said something about being creative. And like that was just always like this little like fucking light in the corner of my brain of like, oh, do something creative, do something creative. And I wasn't like one of those super cool kids that like made you know, a ton of art when they were young or anything like that. Like I think I started making like funny videos, you know, like a lot of people. I mean, this is going to sound really stupid to like a young person listening to this now, but like, but back then it was like kind of rare. Like my dad had a video camera, I remember,
hmm
and we were like he just randomly bought one and no one else had one at that time. So I started like shooting little dumb videos, you know, in my backyard with my brothers, you know, just dumb shit. But, but that sort of thing was sort of an early sort of creative outlet, you know. But I didn't like paint or do music or anything like that.
it sounds like you
But
were just drawn to the camera. Like you didn't know what you were going to do, but you're going to do something. So
I I
you
think
grab the
so.
camera,
Yeah.
and I'm just
I
going to
mean,
make something, and I'm going to see what it turns into.
yeah, and like I had a really hard time being honest with myself about what I wanted to do. You know, like acting or comedy seemed impossible. Like I don't know about you. I think you and I are similar that I had zero connection to any of this. You know, like I didn't
Yeah,
have my
same.
parents were not involved in this. You know,
They were supportive, though, correct? When you,
oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. They were supportive, but supportive in a way of like hey, you know, when this doesn't work out, you can
yeah,
always move back to South
right.
Carolina and you know, work in a
We're
bank or
glad you're
something like that.
trying this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So my mom when she was right out of college, she moved to LA and worked as like a secretary in the 50s
Whoa,
and like
whoa. Are you allowed to say that anymore? You have to say
yeah,
administrative assistant?
probably, yeah.
Okay.
But back then, but yeah, but she worked at like CBS and some TV places out here.
Well, that's you were
So
in.
yeah. So my mom was like very kind of like always smitten by Hollywood, and because she had lived here for very briefly, but we had no connection to show business. She was a like you said, she was an administrative assistant or whatever, and
You can say secretary to me,
yeah. So
as long as she wasn't a
and
stewardess.
she was not a
Okay.
stewardess. She was not a stewardess, but my dad was a pilot though, so I
Okay.
can talk about that.
Well,
But yeah, so we just had no connection to entertainment at all, and so that seemed like a total
sure.
fucking lark. I mean, how do you explain that? So eventually, when I moved to New York, um, I moved up to New York from I was living in Atlanta, and my
Wait,
first job
wait.
was
So,
in.
so
Go
wait a
ahead.
minute. So, what's your chronology? So, after high school, you went to Clemson,
Yeah, I went to Clemson, and then
and what
after
did you
Clemson,
study at Clemson?
I studied marketing at Clemson
Hey,
because
I was an advertising guy. Yeah, that's good.
yeah, because well, that was my plan. My whole plan was to move to New York and get into advertising,
Yeah,
and that's how we both know our friend Kevin
that's
Doyle.
right.
Yeah,
So,
and
so
so
wait. So then, okay. So, did you take right after you finished college? Did you go to Aspen?
yeah, right
Okay.
after I finished college, like the day after,
Okay.
I packed all my shit up. I think I had $800 in the bank, and I moved to Aspen,
And so that was
and I
just
worked.
by design. Like, I'm taking a year off.
Yeah, at that point, there were like I graduated in some terrible year where there was like a big recession
Right.
and there was like no jobs, and so it was like you might as well just have fun,
Right.
So I moved out to Aspen, worked in hotels, uh, um, and it's so funny. I'm watching people pop up on the
Yeah.
screen who I know and love, um, but
Oh, and you
yeah,
know
so
what?
I,
We'll do a little Q&A toward the end of this, so we'll acknowledge some of
yeah,
these.
yeah,
So,
no problem, no problem. But shout out to my friend Boyd Summers, but the so yeah, so I moved to Aspen for a year and was basically just a ski bum. I skied for a year and I worked two jobs, during the
did
day,
you try
and then
grass?
that's where I first tried grass.
I think
And
you
then
tried grass in Spartanburg.
I
Right.
tried grass in Clemson. Shout out to Lee Chapman. But these are all people
That's
that
all right.
introduced me to drugs.
Let's see.
Um, but yeah, so then after Aspen, I moved to Atlanta, and just like you, I wanted to work in advertising, but I didn't have any real advertising degree or talent.
Right.
So I got a job in advertising sales,
Right.
just selling advertising space.
Right.
And one of my first jobs was for the local entertainment paper. It was called Creative Loafing.
Yep.
Like in Richmond, they have
Yeah.
like the Free Times,
Style,
maybe something
Style
like that.
magazine is what it's called.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's just the weekend paper. There's like
Right.
bars and
The
restaurants.
Village
So that was my
Voice
first.
type thing.
Yep,
Yeah. LA
exactly.
Weekly.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So that was like my first job was like selling ads, and then if I was lucky, the person would let me design the ad, and I would try to be funny
Creative.
and make something kind of fucking weird, or they had like designers there that would design it, but I would try to like write something funny or make it weird. One time I
So
took a picture of myself
keep going.
naked and I put a naked picture of myself in the ad, but I blurred out my junk and so I put that in some speaker company's ad. And they were like, oh, okay, we don't know.
Right.
So I was just trying to make funny shit, but my sort of long game was to move to New York and to write for an ad agency. Like I wanted to be a copywriter because that to
Yeah.
me sounded like comedy writing,
But
but you had a
legitimate.
job.
Yeah. But
Yeah, yeah,
safe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something I could tell my
I had the
parents
same
was
thing. Same thing.
yeah.
Um,
So
so then,
that's so
so
funny.
then you moved up to New York, and were you doing any freelance ad work? Like when we,
No, the advertising never worked out for me. When
so what
I
you,
think when I hooked,
so when you got to New York, you got an apartment and what?
yep, I
Like
got an
I'm
apartment.
hoping that people are listening who will actually go ahead and fucking go for it. And
Yeah,
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 I'm,
yeah,
I'm trying
yeah.
to
I'm always
lay that out.
self-conscious about I'm always self-conscious about bio stuff because I feel like it's boring
Well,
because
no,
it's my it's
it
it's my life. But
no, it's more your mindset. It's that taking the leap, that most people
yeah,
don't
yeah,
do. And then once you do that, you're in, and then you can either keep going every time something really freaking sucks, or you
yeah,
can bail. Like I think you got to take the leap. I think you got to work hard, and you have to just freaking persevere before you can get to that place where you realize you can start calling some shots and really do what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, two sort of big forks in my road where I could have gone this way or could have gone that way. One that you are directly involved in. The first one was deciding to move to New York. I was living in Atlanta, working for that newspaper, and a friend of mine who worked in the newspaper, this woman who was like way older than me. She was the restaurant critic, and she was going up to New York to eat at all these restaurants. And she was like, yeah, I was like 25 and she was 50. She was just like a friend of mine. And she
Sure.
was like, hey, yeah, but she was like, hey, I'm going to New York this weekend. Do you want to come up to New York and like just,
Just be
have a
friends.
fun,
Yeah, just be friends up there.
just be friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I don't care. Yes, of course. I was like ready to quit that job and like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went up to New York with this woman and it sounds crazy now that I say it out loud, but I swear we were just friends. Like there was no romance at all.
No.
But we went up to New York and I had never really hung out in New York. And I just had this fucking awesome Labor Day weekend in New York with this very well-known restaurant critic taking me out to dinner at all these places. Now that I'm saying it out loud, it sounds like she was trying to put the moves.
Right. Did she give you some Bill Cosby lemonade?
None of that ever happened. But so went to New York
Because it's
had a
hilarious
fucking-
that people got dosed and whatever.
No, I'm not laughing at
I'm
that.
not
I was
making
laughing
light
at
of
Bill-
that.
We're not making light of Bill Cosby.
Right.
So went to New York for that weekend and just had this tremendous eye-opening weekend of like, oh, I need to move to New York. This feels like a city where there's so much opportunity. Maybe I could bullshit my way into advertising,
Yeah.
So that was my plan. I went back to Atlanta.
Did you
I had
have a
garage.
tearful goodbye when she left to go back to Atlanta and you didn't?
We-
Was it like a series finale kind of thing?
I love just not recognizing all the signs on the wall.
Yeah.
This woman was in love with me.
Right.
No, that didn't happen. So I went back to Atlanta, had a garage sale, sold all my shit, and moved to New York with literally like under $1,000.
Yeah.
Like
That's the best way to
not
do
a
it.
good, not a good plan at all.
Right.
And like, my plan was fucking, I don't know. I was just going to try to survive in New York for 1 year. That was an experiment. It was like to see if I could get an apartment and get a job and live for 1 year in New York. That's all I wanted to do.
Right. And again, for people just tuning in, is this Mike Henry talking to Rob Huebel, who's a big TV star now, and
real big. Google me.
We live together in New York, and I think that might be getting close to where we are whatever in the order of time.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you got to New York, and how'd you get an apartment?
I knew a guy.
The lady just paid for an apartment for you.
Yeah. That lady. All I had to do was go down on her like 6 times a day.
Okay.
And no.
Wow.
No. So
he was kicking in fast at 50.
So a friend of mine from Clemson knew some guys that lived up there that were like investment banker dudes.
Yeah.
And they were like just these nice guys from South Carolina that were like, hey man, you can stay in our extra room, like they were all making a lot of money.
That's exactly my situation. I went to Washington and Lee, and there were a lot of kids on business tracks that were just killing it early, and I was their starving artist friend, and I completely understand that dynamic.
And so that's what I was. I was like the weirdo guy in their guest room, sleeping on the floor. Like I didn't have a bed.
Right.
I would pile up my clothes and my towel for a pillow.
Right.
And I would just sleep on the floor,
Right.
And so I did that, and I was temping. One of those guys, his girlfriend worked at a temp agency, and so she would get me good temp jobs.
Right. How old was she? He understood their relationship. He called her his girlfriend.
Right. That's right.
All right, so you were temping, doing BS.
So I was temping, just doing dumb bullshit jobs, like anything. But she would be like, do you know Excel? And I would say no. And she was like, yes,
A
you do. And I'd
Hyundai?
go,
Is
okay,
that a Hyundai?
yeah, yeah, I do. I know Excel.
Okay.
So then I could get, she would hook me up with these jobs where I didn't have to do anything. I could just make like 20 bucks an hour, working on Wall Street in some bullshit place.
Right.
So did that for like, fuck man, like a year. And at the same time was trying to like send a resume to all of these big ad agencies. I just didn't have a plan, like
Right.
literally did not know what to do.
Right.
So long story short, after several months of like just temping and eating fucking macaroni and cheese,
Yep.
I bullshitted my way into a job at this cable channel that was just coming together called the Outdoor Life Network.
Yep. You were there when I knew you.
Yeah.
So you're
So
doing
so
segment producing for them, is that right?
so I was
You're
basically
like,
I
I
was
lived
basically
in
like a
Aspen.
yeah, I was like a PA,
Hmm.
and I was one of the first people hired. And the way I got the job was I read about it in like Variety or some shit or somewhere on the internet maybe, and I found out where their office was, and I did the fucking dumbest thing, but it worked. I took my resume and I put it inside a pizza, and I delivered the pizza to the head of the network. Like I literally, this is before 9/11. I went into the building and I saw what floor they were on. I went up to the top floor where they were,
Right.
and I said, I have a pizza for Peter Engelhart. That's the guy's name.
Right.
And they're like, okay, he's down the hall. Walked into his office and handed him this pizza, and he was like, what the fuck? And I was like, oh, and I had laminated my resume, and he was like, I was like, hey, this pizza's for you. Have a good day. See you later. I didn't want to talk to him,
You know what?
so I
Keep going.
so I got home, and he fucking called me. He was like, hey, this is Peter Engelhart. You must really want a job because you fucking snuck into our building and risked. So he's like, come in next Tuesday and I'll set you up with an interview or whatever. So I just
Right.
bullshitted my way into a PA job at this cable
Right.
channel. And that was like my first real production job.
And then he took you to Montreal, and he wasn't
Yeah.
really a
So
boyfriend.
he
Uh,
wasn't really my he
no.
wasn't really my boyfriend. I mean, I just had to like I cleaned his pool.
Right.
I would wash his car. I'd take my shirt off. I'd wash his car.
Yeah. That's what you
He would
do.
take some tasteful, what I call tasteful nudes of me.
Right. You know what I love about the pizza story is that is such a fucking gimmick that you would have done to get into advertising back then. It's like, it's
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so were you at all thinking, I'm going to be on camera and be a funny guy, that's what I really want to do? Or were you just kind of like trying to figure out what the fuck?
My goal was to try to get on camera, but come in the back door. Like maybe if I'm already there,
Right,
maybe they'll let me host something and I can be funny.
right.
Like
Yep.
if I show them that I'm creative and that I'm funny and that I'm reliable, maybe they'll let me be on
Then
camera.
you don't have to do you don't have to get headshots and go on 1,000 auditions.
Yeah, and
So
so I was. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. So I want to get to where you and I met. So I think,
Yeah.
I was, my chronology at that point was I had uh, grown up in Richmond, gone to college, Washington Lee, a small Virginia school. Then I worked for a year in advertising. Then I moved to LA. Didn't know anybody, same as you. I took a stand-up workshop. I did some sketch stuff, improv at the Groundlings. I did a few
Yeah.
classes there, and then I waited tables, and then I moved back to Virginia and shot a bunch of commercial parodies because I wanted to be on SNL. And I also went up to RISD to be in my brother's films, his student films. Patrick was a film major up at Rhode Island School of Design, and happened to be Seth MacFarlane's roommate, which was, more on that later. But then I moved up to New York and I had this demo tape, and I was counterculture. I didn't like any established kind of stuff. I just want to make fun of everything. And so did we meet at the Luna Lounge, like at the
I
UCB
think so.
show?
I think so. At that point, I was going out at night to a lot of comedy shows because I really wanted to get into comedy, but I didn't have the nerve yet. So I was kind of just like stalking comedy shows.
Yeah,
I was going to Luna Lounge a lot of different shows on the Lower East Side where I would just go and just watch. And back then it was like Mark Maron and Todd Barry and like
yeah,
John Glazer and John Benjamin and Louis C.K. and Sarah Silverman, and I mean, all of those like New York kind of alt comedy,
Yep.
legends.
Yep.
And I was just like so envious. I was like, how do I do this? How do I get into this?
Yeah.
And I think we might have met. There because that was before UCB was a thing. But I wanted to
They did a
at
show.
some.
They did a show at the Luna Lounge where and the Luna Lounge was on the Lower East Side. I think it was on Monday nights. It was the alternative room, and I think I went there and I met you through Kevin Doyle, who I had worked with for a little bit in advertising, and so we went. I remember they came out as they called themselves Hootenanny and the Fun Bunch, and it was like an up with people kind of thing, and they were all like so positive and talking about just staying positive and blah blah blah, and all you need is the right mindset. And then they whipped out like 20 joints and fired them up and started handing them out at this club, and it was like I was just like, oh my God, this exists. And
Yeah.
so then they started their theater up soon, and then you and I took
Well,
classes there.
well, that's what I've told to a million other people, and I don't know if I've ever talked to you, but like basically you that was the other fork in my road where you took me to my first UCB show, and I didn't even know what it was, but we were hanging out. I think at that point you and I were living together
Yeah.
on 22nd Street, and I think it was like Sunday night where they were doing like their Ass Cat show.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, man, do you want to go see this improv show? I had never seen improv. I didn't know what it was.
Actually,
And
I
you're
didn't
like,
ask you. What I did was I brought you a pizza with a note in it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But so I was like, sure, I'll go see it. I don't even know what improv is. Literally didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching a bunch of people perform together. I had never seen, I'd only seen stand up. So to watch like
Right.
6 or 8 people,
comedy
make,
jazz,
make fucking comedy jazz. I was like, a huge lightning bolt hit me in the face, and I was like, this I think I'm interested in, and I might be able to do this.
Because you don't have to stand up there by yourself and deliver material that you've written and thought a lot about. You just fucking get up there and react.
Yeah, and so that seemed really appealing to me. And those early shows, I remember like, obviously it was the UCB people, Amy Poehler and those guys. But then I feel like also like Tina Fey was doing it, and like Adam McKay and Rachel Dratch and John Glazer and like just like all these fucking comedy,
big hitters,
very big hitters, all from Chicago.
Yeah.
And then so right after that, UCB opened their school, and I was just like, like everybody else, just signed up for classes, and I was like, yeah, I got to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So that kind of changed the path I was on, where I was like, wait a second, if this is something I could study and get good at, maybe I could somehow get into comedy. Obviously, you don't, no one told me you don't fucking make money doing improv.
Right.
But that eventually led me to doing doing on-camera commercials, which was the other big thing that kind of changed me and sort of set me on my way, was getting commercials.
Right. I was fine taking the corporate money for a day. If you could just go get in and out, and God willing, be somewhat funny or appealing on camera. Yes, I'm fine with that. Again, I'm talking to Rob Huebel, my New York City roommate from 1997, 98, and he's now a big star. And so we're just catching up. And we're talking about following that passion. I do some college talks. I used to do a lot more. Now I do them from time to time. And I was speaking to Virginia Commonwealth here, VCU, and someone asked me, and I was talking about following your passion and just listening to your inner voice. And the theme of my talk was, let your inner voice guide you along a path to a place that doesn't exist till you get there. Okay, so it's a little precious, but it's true, and that's what I believe. And she's like, I'm about to graduate. I do production design for still photography shoots, and there's a lot going on here in Richmond. Do you think I should stay in Richmond where there's a lot of cool stuff going on, I could get work right away, or I could move to New York And it would take a lot, it'd be a lot harder, and it's whatever, blah blah blah. What do you think I should do? And I said, what do you think you should do? She goes, I should move to New York. I'm like, move to New York. So
Yeah.
I truly believe everyone if you close your eyes and feel your life force or whatever, people know what they need to do, but sometimes it's really freaking hard what you need to do. Like moving.
Well, and also, yeah, also like, I'm not sure, but I have a hunch that like, a lot of people think that like, they're going to be famous, they're like, oh, you're just going to be, I'm going to be famous, like, I think also like, people that are real young right now growing up, they just grew up with YouTube and, fucking everything where
Right.
all you do is make a funny
I'm one
video and it
post
goes
away
viral.
from 5 million
Yeah.
followers or 30
Yeah,
million or whatever.
and because that has happened for some people.
Sure.
If you look at some of these YouTube stars, like they're not super funny. They just like hit it with like a viral video or whatever.
And
So
that's going to sustain for a long time. That's going to carry
yeah,
them through their whole life.
yeah. So what I tell people, what I try to encourage people to do when someone asks me like, how do I get into comedy or how do I get into theater or whatever, I always tell people move to New York because
Yeah.
and it's impossible for some people, if you're married or if you have a kid, it's hard to just uproot your life and do it.
Yeah.
And you may not have to anymore because of the internet. Like you could ostensibly find, and this is the other thing I tell people is find a little mafia, make a little mafia with your friends
Yeah.
because it's so much easier to collaborate with 2 or 3 other people. And that way you can encourage each other and kind of motivate each other. And you're accountable to somebody else, like, hey, we're going to shoot this sketch on Saturday. Did you finish writing it?
Right.
Like you are accountable,
Right.
So
You were
I tell
supposed
people
to
that,
bring a wheelbarrow and 3 hard hats. You're like, yeah,
yeah,
you got to,
what?
you find yourself doing very random things. So you connected, and I should say, so during this time, I did some classes at UCB as well. And then, I was in a grind. I was 8 years into my sort of comedy path. And at that point, I was getting really freaking stressed out because I didn't know what else to do. I was doing everything I could and things were going rough for me in New York. And I remember it was wintertime and, it was really shitty. And then all of a sudden things turned a corner and I booked a Foot Locker commercial, which ran all during the NBA playoffs and stuff. So it was cool because I was actually.
Do you want to give us a little taste of that?
Yeah, I was jogging with my fit friend, and he said, "Hey Barry, what do you say? You want to go 5?" And I was like, "Yeah, would that be minutes or miles?" And then it just went from there. So it was that was that, and then Patrick, my brother, and I, who had been collaborating on shorts, a lot of short films, met Lorne Michaels and got to do all these shorts for the Burly Bear Network, which was their college cable network back then. And then Seth called from LA, and I'd been helping him with this presentation for Family Guy. I've been giving him some jokes, and we would talk about the stuff we were doing.
And so back up for just a second. So you knew Seth because Patrick, your brother,
Yep.
was roommates with Seth at his
at the
college.
Rhode Island School of Design. So I would go up and act in my brother's films, and Seth and I met and hit it off and just cracked each other up. And so he, his senior film, his senior animation project was a 5-minute version of Family Guy. And all of his teachers were like, no, you can't make these jokes, you can't do this, and he just did. And then he was working in LA for Hanna-Barbera, and somebody caught wind of this thing, this short that he did as a senior, and he developed it. He did a 10-minute presentation or 10 or 12-minute presentation of it, which he hand drew. He colored in, he did all the voices, he played the music, like he did all of this, and he'd call me and bounce stuff off of me.
Is he talented?
Not really, no. But and that was my break. That was a real job. That was, he said, "Do you want to come out and write jokes and create characters for this show?" That was 1998, and so I boogied on out there. And it's funny, in retrospect, once I read The Outliers, did you ever read that Malcolm Gladwell book?
Malcolm Gladwell.
Basically, it just points out that, once you do something for 10,000 hours, you're an expert. And I did the math, and it was literally right about 10,000 hours that I've been writing, acting, shooting stuff, editing, just all the stuff, auditioning, classes, whatever. And so I was ready, and I was so lucky that I had put in all that work. It's not like I got plucked out of the ad agency and put into that environment. So, I was
Yeah,
completely ready.
I remember like kind of where you were mentally at that point because I feel like you had been really grinding for like a long
Yeah,
time, and um, and I think even financially at that point,
that was a joke.
I feel like you were kind of living off your credit card, and I was like living week to week, like I was fucking broke,
Yeah,
and but I feel like you were a little bit ahead of me where you were kind of like charging everything, living off your credit card, but just kind of like still hustling, just like everything was a hustle, like
constantly.
setting up meetings,
I
going on
auditioned.
auditions.
I auditioned for a year and a half, literally 5 times a week, at least, and
Yeah.
booked nothing.
Oh, me too.
In New
I
York.
auditioned for, yeah, me too. I auditioned for like a solid year, just going on auditions, didn't get anything,
Yeah,
like was fucking broke. I was like, I don't think I could do this. And then like I got like a McDonald's commercial.
yeah.
So that kind of helped me out. But I remember
Remember,
when,
so poor we know now. Like,
oh,
you all right? We'd go to house. You got me
yeah,
now?
sorry, my thing's just freezing up a little bit.
You all right? You moving? Am I moving?
Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead. Keep
No,
talking.
I was just saying we were so broke, and I was. What was that? I was maybe 32 or something, and you're a few years younger. But I remember we were so broke, we never went out. We would eat Ranch One. Remember that fast food chicken takeout stuff? And I would go to my New York, whatever my gym was called, that was like $40 a month. And you went to some random gym where it was like guys, like rusty weights and like guys wearing work boots.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I went to some like 24-hour gym where it was like, yeah, it was like $20 a month and it was open 24 hours a day and it was all bodybuilders. Like I was the only non-bodybuilder. People are saying that you're freezing up, Mike, so you might want to check
I'm
your
freezing up. I
connection.
look great to me.
Yeah,
Um,
you do? Okay, good.
no, I'm kidding.
Maybe it's back to normal.
Am I still
But
freezing up? Can somebody just,
you look good to me. But someone will
yeah.
tell us.
All right.
Um,
So
but yeah, but so
we
but
would,
so I just remember that time where things seemed like they were pretty desperate, or pretty much like I wasn't sure how much longer we could keep just living off credit cards.
yeah.
And then I remember when you got that call from Seth to go do that, and it was just like literally one of the like you were just off to the races because like you said you had been practicing for that moment and like you know honing your writing skills and writing jokes and directing shorts and stuff like that. So then when that happened, whatever they say, luck is opportunity meets fucking whatever. um
Yeah.
I
No, you got
I
it. Yes, I was very lucky to have met Seth and to have had that opportunity, but I also worked my friggin' ass off to be ready for that moment. Blind,
Yeah,
that's the thing about my talk. It's like that's listening to just grind and doing what I was doing. I didn't know where it was going. I thought maybe SNL. I didn't know that's really what I wanted to do. And there was no Family Guy, and I got it on the
yeah,
ground floor, so it
yeah,
worked out wonderful. But yeah. So and
yeah.
then what did you do at that point? You started.
So around the same time, let me see, you moved out to LA. I got like another roommate, but somewhere
That's my
somewhere in
brother.
that, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Patrick stayed with me for a while, and then somewhere in there I started taking I took a commercial audition class, to learn like how to audition for commercials, and at the same time I was still taking UCB classes.
Hmm.
And so basically what happened for me was uh, a commercial agent came to see me at UCB and in some sketch show that I was in or an improv show, and that's how I got my first commercial agent.
Yeah.
And so then I was just started doing, but it was all tied into UCB. Like I was just taking classes,
Yeah.
and then got a commercial agent out of that. so was able to start auditioning. And like you said, I auditioned for like a year. I didn't get anything. Finally got like a McDonald's commercial. And then I feel like with commercials, at least back then, like once you get one, then you kind of get a little momentum going. Other ad agencies are like, oh, that's the guy from the fucking McDonald's
Yeah.
commercial, you know?
Yeah.
So I was kind of, I got on like a little bit of a streak with commercials and was starting to like book a lot of them. And so I was able to quit my job. At that time, I was doing like a lot of other production work. I had worked at the Outdoor Life Network, you know, for a while, and then I was freelancing production for a while. Like I worked at the Daily Show.
That's right.
I worked for Michael Moore for a year, and but only behind the camera. You know, like the Daily Show. It's like my favorite show ever. I wanted to be on camera so bad,
Right.
but I was just like a field producer, you know, which was fun. You know, setting up shoots, writing copy for the correspondence.
Right.
But I really wanted to be on camera, and I even got to audition a couple times, didn't get it,
Yeah.
and I was like, I work here, you know. So it just never happened for me at the Daily Show. So I was kind of hoping, like you, to get on SNL. Like that just seemed like the only thing left in New York. I was like, fuck, man, maybe I can get on SNL. Auditioned twice, didn't get on.
Did you
And then the
audition for
real
Lord?
hard, yeah.
You did.
So the first year I auditioned, they did this weird audition at UCB where it was like a free for all where they had people that they wanted to look at do an improv show, and so obviously it was the most competitive improv show you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then they let a couple people who didn't want to improvise. They let them just do characters, which I totally should have done.
Right.
So Fred Armisen was one of those guys
Okay.
who was just like, I'm not doing improv. I'm gonna do my characters.
Right.
So he did characters, got hired.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I never got SNL, obviously, and somewhere in there, while I was still doing commercials, I started hooking up with Paul Scheer and some other early UCB guys. Eventually, we met Aziz, our buddy Aziz,
Mm-hmm.
and we started making little funny, weird videos, and just to show at comedy shows at UCB, and then we got Human Giant out of that.
Right.
And I'm kind of fast forwarding
Yeah.
through some bull.
Yeah, we're gonna run out
through
of
some
time
bullshit.
soon. So
Yeah,
okay, so that was when you got to start collaborating with friends, making cool shit, and getting paid for it.
yeah. And the key to that, I will say, if you want to shoot stuff with your friends, and you know this from doing it, it helps when you have someone that can write, shoot, edit, you know, do all of that.
Right.
Like we were very lucky. Our buddy Jason Walliner, who directed Human Giant, shot everything for us, edited everything, and was like a fucking
God.
great writer too. Just a really funny writer.
Yeah.
You know, he went on to do Eagle Heart and do a bunch of really funny shows, and so he's just a super funny writer, but and great director. But so yeah, that sort of thing helps. You know, when like your friends are like, oh, I'll shoot it and help you write it.
Right.
You know, and I can edit it too. You know.
Right.
So that's how we did Human Giant. Human Giant was our MTV sketch show.
And
we did
that's a key component. I mean, obviously somebody needs to know how to make the shit. So like not everyone can be the actors. And I did the same thing. You know, my brother was behind the camera. Our friend Bunt Young, who's on here, is a great cinematographer. And he was, at the same time, I wanted to prove my comedy on camera. He wanted to prove his camera work. And so
Yeah.
I think young people, it's key to sort of figure out everything you need to do to get something made and find people you like and just start frickin' doing it.
So how did you? Because I don't really know some of your bio too. So you went out to LA to hook up with Seth and help him write for Family Guy. And did you know right away you were going to be doing voices?
Yeah. No, I mean, it wasn't like he sold the show. He had showed me the presentation, and it was obviously hilarious. And so when they sold it to Fox, they got a 1-season order and, you know, hire some people. And so everyone else on staff was sort of a traditional writer, you know, like a TV writer that had spec scripts of, you know, a Frasier or a whatever the hell. And I'd written sketches and I'd done a bunch of character work in my brother's stuff. And so I showed up and I just started popping off jokes and imitating people and whatever. So it it was a perfect fit for me because I'd been doing short form commercial parodies and short things that are part of the DNA of Family Guy. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
kind of why I was brought in to just help grow that part of it. And
yeah.
yeah, so
And
Somebody
but did
wants to
you
hear my
know?
Cleveland voice. Hi. I didn't see who you were, but hi. Oh, there he is. Hi. Hey, Alan Studios.
We should just let you do all of them.
nah, not gonna do it.
But I feel like at one point wasn't Cleveland our outgoing message on our answering machine?
I don't know because I didn't really create. Maybe there was a guy that sounded like him. That's what it
I
was.
think it was a early
Yeah,
incarnation of Cleveland was on like our answering
yeah,
machine. I mean, this is going way back when people had answering
yeah,
machines
yeah.
and people had landlines.
Right.
But yeah, so but your that connection that to Patrick's roommate that is such a an awesome to me story of like the American dream. Like here you were fucking working hard, grinding, and then you just met this guy that was like,
Well, I met him.
"Hey, I got
I
this
met him
project."
3 years before Family Guy. So it's that kind of thing where you don't know what's going to turn into what, or who you're going to meet.
Yeah, yeah.
If you audition for something and you're not right for that thing, maybe they remember you, and it's that. And I'm sure that's happened with you. But
Yeah,
it's
wow, that's a really good point. Just in general, I think that people sometimes forget about. I do too, but like everything leads to something else,
yeah,
like in a perfect world, but like so many times, yeah, I've auditioned for a pilot, didn't get it, or a movie, didn't get it, but then that director remembers me
yeah,
the next time around.
totally.
So all of that is really, really helpful and good to
And you
remember.
probably are on the other side of that now, since you got a show and you see somebody that's not quite right, but
Oh,
oh,
totally,
I'm gonna
man.
write a
Like
part for that person.
totally, all the time. Like even way back on Human Giant, because we did all the I mean, we had casting directors, but we would look at all of the people that came into audition, and I did Children's Hospital with Cordry,
Hmm.
and wasn't really involved in any of the casting on that, but definitely like met a lot of people through that, and I would just be like, wow, that guy was awesome. If I ever get a chance to do something
Yeah,
else, I'm gonna write a part for him.
yeah,
So I've done that a million times, and yeah, like on I did. Do you want to see a dead body for YouTube Red? But same thing. That was just like, um, who can I use? Now it's my show, so I can use whoever I want. So obviously, we wanted to get some famous people for a lot of the parts, but then a lot of it is just like you can't ask someone that's really famous to come on and do like 4 lines. You just don't want to.
right.
You just don't really want to use people that way. So you end up casting other funny people that you know and like, or like, oh, how about that guy that we met that one time? He's great. So
Yeah.
now, like, being on the other side of that is really fun because I love doing that. I love like making a list of people that I think would be perfect for something that I'm working on.
Yeah, I do live action stuff too, Rob.
It's okay. I don't have your phone number, but I'll call your landline.
All right. Um, yeah, man. Well,
But so what? I don't know what time it is either, buddy.
yeah, we
I
got
don't. I
like
don't know.
about 6 minutes, I think.
Okay, cool.
So,
Do you want to answer some questions from people? I don't
yeah,
know what
man.
you
Hey,
do.
Mike, has Family Guy been renewed for season 19? I think I think that's happening any time now, and we are still in production because actually the process allows everyone to sort of work on their own. So, yeah, so we're rocking. Why do they only allow 1 hour for this? I don't know.
That's not true. I think you can go because Questlove goes on for like 7 hours. You can go on as long as you
Okay,
want.
well,
Zoom
oh,
Zoom is only an hour, I think.
oh, all right.
Yeah,
Um,
you can go on as long as you want. Um, I'm looking on some of these. A shout out to Bunt.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Quit up that guy.
uh,
Uh, yeah.
I can't find a lot of like non-jokey questions, but what do you tell people when you do like your college talk
Yeah.
and you're talking to people? Uh, is it different for animation? Like I don't understand really the process of it. Like I do when I do like I've done a couple things on Family
Yeah.
Guy. Never been on your show. Thanks. I guess my number was busy, but it's okay.
It all happened so fast.
Yeah, it happened so far. But I've done like
I thought we
some
reached out to you for the Cleveland show, didn't we?
I think I've done a couple things. Yeah. I'm just busting your balls.
Actually, you didn't.
But
I purposely didn't
the
call you in.
the actual process of animation is so different from what I'm used to. Like I don't even know how it works. Like how far in advance you guys are writing. Like I have buddies over at Bob's Burgers, and I do stuff on there every now and then. But like we'll do record it, and it doesn't come out for 9 months.
Yeah. Family Guy
So
takes a year, and
so that writing you must be in a totally different.
you write
Because
it.
you can't write topical jokes,
No,
right?
and that's great because if you look at a Family Guy from 1990, it's still funny. It's
Still
not.
funny, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there might be topical stuff from 1950. It just covers a wide range. We
Yeah.
don't try to be topical, but yeah, you write it, then you record it. You see a rough animatic like 6 months later, rewrite it, get the color back from Korea 5 months or 4 months after that, and then they tweak it. And there's a symphony orchestra that scores the whole thing. But our secret is you get 3 shots at it. It's not like we're taping on Friday and that's what you got. You see the animatic and you can change a whole bunch of stuff, and you see the color and you can still change some stuff. So,
Yeah.
it's that's a little production secret that.
And then when you
that.
guys I don't know, I don't want to get too bogged down in the process of it, but when you guys are writing the show, it's not like writing a season. It's not like writing a show where there's one big arc, for the season.
No, they're
every
all
episode is
singles down.
standalone.
Yeah.
So do you guys just like the initial writers room? Are you guys, hey, what about an episode about this?
Yes.
What about this?
Yeah.
What
Peter
about
finds
this?
out
How
he's
about
a
this?
quarter Mexican,
Great.
or Cleveland and Peter change bodies, just whatever. And
Yeah.
the story's broken out by 5 or 6 guys, and then one person writes it, and then we gang bang the rewrite and go from there. But
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I'm afraid we are going to run out of time. Is there anything you want to say about Medical Police, since that's current?
No, just check it out if you haven't seen it.
It's hilarious.
Thank you.
Doctors
we have the
and
crazy
law enforcement officers.
Yeah, it's basically a spin-off of the Children's Hospital world where we're doctors, and then in this we sort of become cops. And the fucking crazy thing is we shot this over a year ago, but it is about a virus outbreak that we were trying to contain.
That's hilarious.
And dude, it is so bizarre. Now 100% of people on Twitter think that we're time travelers. They're
Right.
like, did you guys fucking, how
That's
did
it.
you
That
know
is.
there would be, but it really is crazy to the point where some people are like, oh, I'm not comfortable watching a comedy about this.
Right.
Thankfully, it's so absurd. Like our version is so absurd, like the tone of it is like, like Airplane and like Naked Gun. Like it's all just like very like dumb jokes,
Right.
So it happens to be set in the world of this outbreak, and me and my friend Aaron Hayes, who plays Lola Spratt, are jet setting around the world trying to contain this virus. But yeah, it was just a crazy coincidence that we shot this, and then it fucking happened in real life.
Yeah, life imitating art.
Yeah, really, really crazy.
Shit.
But yeah,
Well,
that's the only thing I would plug. I got
you know what I
a
want to
new
plug?
thing.
I want to
Yeah, go
plug
ahead.
your wedding, which my wife Sarah and I were at, and you were married actually. Henry Winkler was the officiant, so you literally got married by the Fonz, which is the greatest.
Yeah.
And what a sweetheart of a guy! And
The best guy in the whole world.
that was the funnest wedding I've ever been to, other than my own. So
Man, I really appreciate it. That was like obviously a fun fucking party, just a party with all of my, everyone that I love. And, not to get over sentimental about it, but like, it was kind of like the last, both my parents passed away within the past, like a little bit, about a year and a half ago.
sorry, Rob.
And it was kind of the last like blowout I had with my parents.
Yeah.
It was like right after that, my mom had a stroke. which was crazy. And then my dad like pretty much got horrible dementia, and then they both just like went downhill fast. So luckily they're not around for this crazy situation we're in now.
Yeah.
But just recently I was looking at wedding pictures and I was like, it just hit me that like, wow, that was the last blowout with my parents, you know. And also, you know, it's obviously amazing to have all of your friends there from every moment in your life, you know, just fucking party.